Becoming a British citizen is an immense privilege. Now, I have made step by step guide videos on a 5-year route, on a 3-year route, and which people have really appreciated. But I get hundreds of comments asking me the most basic questions, and it made me think as to whether I have not covered those questions in my video. But then I thought I must do something more to help you in your achieving your dream to become a British citizen. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to go about naturalizing as a British citizen by referring to naturalization guidance issued by the UK Home Office, because it is through this guidance you get the latest changes in the naturalization process, you find out the statutory criterias and what to bear in mind when you're applying.
Welcome to Naturalization Guidance issued in July 2026.
So the first thing you have to focus on is the contents page, where you see what are the elements that you have to see. So I would say leave the first four and look at the step-by-step guide to naturalizing as a British citizen. There is a question called, do you qualify? There are these two lines. Now, on these, before we go there, I'm going to show you what these two lines relate to. So section 6 subsection 1 of the British Nationality Act 1981 means 5-year route. Section 6 subsection 2 of British Nationality Act 1981 is the 3-year route. Now, besides that, what else are requirements? Requirements to have been in the UK on the first day of the qualifying period. So everything is mentioned here. The absences under the 5-year route and the 3-year route, what lawful residence, restrictions, future intentions, knowledge of English language test, and the life in the UK. Basically, whatever question they're asking you in the online application form, the answer to that is actually from here. And that is why it's extremely important for you to focus on relevant sections. So, for example, do you qualify? So, I'm going to click on page 6. Now, you can see if you're not married to or the civil partner of a British citizen, you can see that section 6.1 applies. So, basically, this is a 5-year route. So, what they're saying is the requirements are here. You can see. So, the requirements are of 5 years. You must have a sound mind, be 18 years of age, must have been in the UK 5 years before the date of application, must have not been breach of immigration laws. You must be 12 months free from restrictions on the date of application and for the 12-month period before making the application. Now, all of this I've actually explained step by step in the 5-year route. The link of that is in the description, and also for the 3-year route in a separate video.
In this section, we cover absences outside the UK on 5-year route.
Now, in terms of absences that are allowed, so you can say you must have not have had more than 450 days outside of the UK in the 5-year period. So this is the number of absences that are allowed in the 5-year period. And before the date of application in the last 12 months, you must have not been outside of the UK for more than 90 days.
In this section, we cover who is eligible to apply to under 3-year route.
So let's go for the 3-year route. So the easiest way to recognize the 3-year route is this subsection 2 of the British Nationality Act. So what they're saying is you must be 18, sound age, but you must have been married or a civil partner of a British citizen on the date of application. If you don't have that, then you will not qualify under this route. You'll be qualifying under the different one, which is the 5-year route. You have lived in the UK for a minimum of 3 years before the date of application. You must have been physically present in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland on the day 3 years before the date of application. Now, understand this thing. In the 5 years, you must have been inside of the UK, physically present in the UK 5 years before the date of application. How that date is calculated, how the technical formula works in a simple language, I've also created a video of that, and I am providing the link of that in the description. So please see that, because there is a lot of text and you might think like I can't go through a lot of text, but I'm only showing you so that you can see any changes.
In this section, we cover how many absences outside the UK are allowed on the 3-year route.
And the absences must have not been outside of the UK more than 270 days in the 3-year period. So, like I said, in the 5-year, the maximum absences that were allowed were 450. In this, there are 270. So, that is what you need to bear in mind. And you must have not have had more than 90 days outside of the UK.
In this section, we cover what is meant by physical presence rule on the first day of qualifying period.
You can also see the requirements to have been in the UK on the first day of the qualifying period. I have really explained this thing really well in my different video, which is in the description, where maximum people they get their refusals because they don't check whether 5 years or 3 years from the date of application, whether they were physically present inside the UK. Now, the UK Home Office has done a great job of explaining that. Now, if you're on the 5 year route, you must have been in the UK exactly 5 years before the date of application was received. Now, let me tell you where people get it wrong. For example, if your application was received on 5th of January 2022, you should have been physically present in the UK on 6th of January 2017. What people tend to do is they take this date and go 5 years back, that would be 5th of January 2017, and they check whether I was inside the UK or not. What they don't realize it, you have to go exactly 5 years back and then add one day to it. That is why you see 6th January here, and see whether I was physically present in the UK or not. If you're not physically present on that day, what you should do is you should delay your application by the relevant number of days, so that when you are applying, you know that you were physically present before the date of application.
In this section, we cover UK absence exceptions for the 3-year and 5-year routes.
Let's go the absences. Now, as I told you, in the 5 year route there are 450 days, which is here, and in the 3 year route there are 270 days. But there is some leeway that they have offered where they disregard more than 450 days and 270 days. It's written here. Look at here. So this section 6.1 is a 5 year route. This is a 3 year route. 450 days and 270 days, as I told you. But sometimes they can disregard 480 days and 300 days. Now, if they ask you the question like, do you meet the statutory criteria of the requirements of absences from the UK? If you have done more than 450 days, the answer would be no. But then you explain, as per your naturalization guidance, you actually disregard the days up to 480 days in total. So, for example, if you're absent for 465 days in the 5 years, okay, so then you can say that this, as per your guidance on page 11, I am claiming that I am fall under the normal disregarded days, which is up to 480 days.
We've covered a lot of ground. If you're feeling tired, take a quick break and grab some water.
I have taken 460 days. But typically, what I would recommend to you is, if you have spent more than 450 days or 270 days in the last 5 years, delay your application by the number of days, say, for example, 10 days or 15 days, so that you meet the statutory criteria. Because if you meet the statutory criteria, it's a check mark for you. But usually, there is some leeway that is allowed. I'm not going to discuss the more technical aspects of 900 days and 540 days. You can read it yourself.
In this section, we cover UK absences in the last 12 months for the 3-year and 5-year routes.
The absences in the last 12 months prior to applying. So, for example, in the last 12 months, what they do is, you must have not been outside of the UK for more than 90 days. Okay. But they give you extra 10 days. For example, you were outside for 95 days for some reason. They disregard that. But then you need to state it as to mitigate the circumstance, saying, I had an emergency, medical emergency, and you show a proof that maybe your flight got delayed or something happened, which is why, so that your holidays that were
In
more
this
than the
section, we
statutory
cover the
allowed,
waiting period
90
after
days,
getting
they can say,
ILR on the
okay, we
5-year and
understand
3-year
that this happened
routes.
with you.
This is one of the most common grounds for refusal.
Time restrictions is really important. So let me zoom that. So here is the critical part which people get it wrong. If you're on a 5 year route, say you were on a skilled worker visa, right, and you got your ILR, you have to wait for 12 months. Look here, it says here, before you apply. So technically, if you're on an ILR on a 5 year route, you would be eligible to naturalize as a British citizen after completing 6 years. It says clearly here. If you apply after the 5 years after receiving the ILR, your application may be refused. So please don't do that. But here is the caveat: if you are married or a civil partner of a British citizen and you are on a 3 year route, you can apply the very day you get your ILR, and you do not have to wait for further 12 months on a 3 year route.
Next, we look at the English language and life in the UK tests. We will also cover who is exempt based on age or nationality.
Is the knowledge of the language and life in the UK test. So there are two tests required. One is to prove your English language ability, which is level B1, and second is the life in the UK test. Okay, so let's look at the English language. So the level B1, you need to demonstrate that you can achieve that. If you're above the age of, say, if you're 65 or above, or you have physical condition, you can get an exemption from that easily. You can just set up your age and you can claim, saying, yes, I'm claiming exemption. But if you're between the ages of 18 to 64, you have to give this test. So it's really important. So there are various ways by which you can prove your English language. You can read that. The level required is B1. If you have a UK degree, you can submit that. That meets the requirement. If you haven't got a UK degree, if you got an overseas degree, you can provide that and get it verified by an organization called ECCTIS, or you can go and give an authorized center test at the English language and achieve level B1. Mind you, if you got ILR and you had a test in which you got B1 and you're applying for the naturalization, you do not have to give the test again. You can apply with the same test. You have to give the life in the UK test. It's a fairly simple test. If you are a national of one of these countries, you're exempt from English language requirements.
Next, we cover the good character requirement. This is where many people get refused, so do not skip.
Good character, really, really important. This is where you need to be really careful. If you got a parking ticket, you got a speeding ticket, you got a civil judgment against you, you owe some money to the HMRC, you owe debt to the NHS, you owe money to the home office, such things you have to declare. So if the question is that do you meet the requirement, if you don't meet the requirement, say I don't, but here is what has happened with me, and here are the circumstances. Explain that in the further information, which is a small box. I always recommend that you should use a cover letter. Now if you don't know how to write a cover letter and you would like to have a copy of that, you can always reach out to me and I will provide you for a fees. I used to provide it free, but there has been a lot of misuse. I'm no longer providing it free of cost.
Next, we cover the criminality requirement.
You must give all the details of criminal convictions, UK and the overseas. If you went to prison, you received a non-custodial sentence, suspended sentence, fixed penalty notices issued on the coronavirus regulations, speeding tickets must also be disclosed. Now, I can understand that if you had a speeding ticket, who remembers as long as you paid for it? Try to save the documentation. If you got a ticket in the post, you paid through your banking record, as long as you can show that you paid it. And say, for example, there was speeding offense, right? You show them in the cover letter that you admit you made a mistake, there was a poor judgment, and you were in the zone and you made a bad judgment call, but you promptly paid the ticket. And since then, you've taken some positive steps to ensure that you comply with the road traffic regulations, such as familiarizing yourself with the speeding limits, and you can see that there were no further tickets issued. The problem happens is if you don't disclose and then they find out, and then it will go against you. So if you think that there was a speeding ticket against you, say so, but I don't have a copy. The fact that you've disclosed it, and even if you don't have the copy, they will see that you are a person who takes accountability, you're courageous and you're honest, and that shows up in your good character. Okay, you can clearly see the fines. You can read all of that.
Next, we cover deception.
Simple deception. So really important, if you applied in a previous application before you had an ILR and you had used deception, they will ask you, have you used deception? And then they will look at how long was it, what was the length of deception, and all of that. So therefore my recommendation is disclose it, be honest about it, show some remorse, genuine remorse, and show what were the circumstances so that they can
Next,
understand.
we cover should you consider instructing a legal expert if your case is complex due to bad character or criminality.
If you have a really, really bad, say, history, for example, due to bad circumstances, you fell into debts, you had cases against you, right? Something bad happened, and instruct a solicitor or a direct access barrister, because they will be much more skilled and much more right in terms of how to present your profile to the home office compared to what you're trying to say. Because when a authorized legal representative is going to represent you, and they will have full understanding of your case, they will have the best form of advice for you as to how to progress
Next,
forward.
we cover your disclosure obligation after submission of naturalization application.
What if you haven't been convicted but your character may be in doubt? Now, this is really important. So I'm going to explain you that, for example, if you were arrested or you were charged with an offense after you make an application. So for example, you submitted an application but you have been arrested now, right? And your application is under consideration. you should write an email to them that, in the interest of full transparency, I want to tell you that my date of application was this is my reference number. I was arrested for example, driving under the influence of alcohol. I genuinely regret it, and I just wanted to make sure that I am being honest upfront about it, and here is a record of that. And whatever the legal course of action is, you should disclose that, but then show them that you have some remorse about it. That if you were innocent, then you have got the representation. If you've done something wrong, then you show them that you did something wrong. So therefore your obligation does not stop before the application. If you have been arrested, it clearly says here, let me zoom it out. If you've been arrested and not told that charges have been dropped, or that you will not have to appear in court, you may wish to confirm with the position with the police. You must tell us if you are arrested or charged with an offense after you make an application, and while the application is under consideration. You risk prosecution under section 46 of the British Nationality Act 1981 if you do not do so. So I mean, the message is clear to you.
Next, we cover how to mitigate extenuating circumstances where you made the wrong decision but have done something about it.
What if you have mitigating factors? Really, really important. A cover letter is an excellent way to show that you've done something about it. Let's look. For example, any voluntary charity work you participate in, or you've engaged in programs addressing the cause of offense. For example, reducing the reduction of alcohol consumption. For example, you attended a rehab clinic because you have a problem with drinking, because you lost your job. You've been attending, you give the name of the supervisor, and since then you've been clean, so that they can contact them, so that they know that okay, people sometimes fall on the bad path, they made wrong calls, but everybody deserves a second chance. So show them that okay, yes, I was arrested, this has really happened, I own up to it, and then there are mitigating factors, and provide them evidence of that. Don't just say I'm not drinking without showing the proof. Show them that you got involved, whether you're giving teaching where people can vouch for your character. The fact that you're disclosing it is not easy, but because you're disclosing it shows speaks volumes about your character.
Finally, we cover who can be your referee for naturalization application.
Referees really important. Like many times people ask me, can my referee be British citizen? Do they both need to be British? I'm not going to go into that because I made a special video of in which I said 99% of the people don't know about this. There are 12 rules that I made, in which I've covered that. I've made a separate video about who can be a referee, who can't be a referee, what do you need to bear in mind. That link is also in the description. Read it, it's on page 31, and it's really easy. One tip: each referee must not be related to you, related to other referee. For example, if you know a husband and wife who are your family friends, they both are British, they both cannot be a referee. Only one person can be referee. They cannot be a solicitor agent representing you on this application. So, for example, if you're going through a solicitor, they can't be a referee. But if you have a other solicitor or a barrister or advisor who's acted on your behalf in the past, has genuinely known you for 3 years, then you can rely on them, and it cannot be somebody employed by the Home Office. And they will want to see that the referee has not been convicted during the last 10 years. They will go through, it's really important.
Next, we explore the TLSContact portal post-payment steps. This section guides you through securing your biometrics appointment and completing your supporting document upload smoothly.
Now, once you have prepared your application and you made the fees, then you'll be brought onto a website called TLSContact. I have shown how a TLSContact website looks like in my step-by-step guide video. Now, on that TLSContact website, you will log in through your unique reference number. When you do that, there are two things you have to do. First is to fix up an appointment. There'll be a paid appointment session, and then there'll be a free session. I recommend you go and select the free appointment session in the nearest council, wherever you can go and do it. Second, in that same website, you have to upload your evidences, supporting evidence, like proving proof of residence, proof of ID, English language ability, life in the UK test, good character, any further information that you want to do, you can do that.
Now, we cover final part of video. What evidences are accepted for naturalization?
Now, what evidences are accepted for identification? Because when you go onto the TLSContact website, they will ask you, show us your proof of identity. It could be a passport, home office travel document, your birth certificate. So these are the things that they accept, or a bank statement issued within the last 6 months. That will prove your or biometric residence permit, right? Then, if you've changed your gender, a gender recognition certificate, residence requirements, people ask me what documents are accepted or not. So basically, not only you have to prove that how long you were outside of the UK, say for example 450 days or 270 days, you have to also show that when you were not outside of the UK, you were actually living in the UK, and you have to prove it through documentation. So you can see everything here. I'm not going to go into detail. So for absences, because you will not remember, I will always urge you to look at your passport, e-tickets in the emails. We understand that sometimes people may not remember the exact travel dates. Please do your best to provide information, and we will try to use our own records to confirm that. Basically, what they're saying is, yes, we understand that you will not remember, but as soon as you are entering that information, if you just enter any date and it turns out to be wrong, it can go against you. So what I recommend is, I do this day in, day out. I go through the passport stamps, every single page. I go through the emails, and I look at the dates on which you were traveling outside of the UK, or when you came back, through the stamps. And when people have multiple passports, old passports and the new passport, it becomes a very tedious exercise. I happily do it for one single end fees. There is no other fees that I charge. If you want me to do it, which includes cover letter and preparing evidences based on what you provide me and looking at the absences, I can do it for a fixed fee.
Surprise, now we see how you can fast tracking your application decision.
And the processing times. So the processing time can take up to 6 months from the date of application. The latest development is, by paying extra £500, you can get the result within 30 days. So that is on top of £1,839, which includes a group citizenship ceremony. You have to pay another £500 to fast track your application. If you believe that the law is going to change and you don't want to risk it, my recommendation is, pay the extra £500 and then apply. Now, if you've liked the video, which I hope you have genuinely, please do subscribe to the channel, because your support means the world to me. Share it with as many people as possible, and I'm providing the links of different videos and this guide for you. Mind you, this guidance gets updated periodically. That means there could be something that is valid today, it might change in 2 months. That's why I have to constantly update myself, and I urge you to keep looking at the website in the link, so that you make the application and achieve your dream to become a British citizen.